Okay, so I've got this fucking incel streamer set up. I might as well put it to some use. We're going to take a look at logarithmic type scales in Penpot. So what is a logarithmic scale? A logarithmic scale is a multiplicative scale compared to a linear scale, which is additive. So a linear scale, you pick a value and you add that value every time. So if your base font size is 16 and you choose a incrementer of 4, you will have 16, 20, 24, 28. It's linear. Logarithmic scale is multiplicative, and what you do is you set your base size, you choose a multiplier, and then the previous value of the scale is then multiplied by your scale factor to give you the next size up, and you multiply as you go. It's much more natural. I'm not going to edit that cough out. It's much more natural. The reason it's much more natural and the reason that we like logarithmic scales is that as the magnitude or density of information increases, you need exponentially more difference between two items for those things to actually be perceived as different. So logarithmic gives us a much more harmonious, what's the fucking word? Perceptual, I don't fucking know. Perceptual difference between different degrees of a scale. So you can see here, we've got our base 16 pixel font size. The jump that you need to kind of communicate a difference in hierarchy, i.e. for it to be perceived as bigger and more important, is very low, between 16 and in this case something around 20, I don't know. But as you go up, if we were to just increase that linearly, it'd be shit. But because we're using a logarithmic multiplicative scale, then we can pretty much just accommodate for the phenomena of perceptual difference based on magnitude and density of surrounding elements and have a nice, harmonious, balanced type scale. So you can see up here, base font size of 16 and a scale factor of 1.25. That's called a major third. Because typography wasn't pretentious enough as a practice, they had to bring stupid music into the equation as well. So 1.25 is a very nice type scale or scale factor for this kind of markety. You get a good deal to choose from with your font sizes. 16 pixel is kind of okay for body copy. And yeah, you get this whole type scale to choose a subset of and lay out in a marketing page that looks like every other marketing page that's ever existed. But we can change the scale degree, and you can see as the scale degree increases, we have a lot more difference between the lower end of the scale and the higher end. If you go like really up to like the golden ratio, like that starts to get a little bit silly. But if that's what you want to use because someone told you that the golden ratio was natural and harmonious and perfect, I'm not going to stop you. I'm not your real dad. But I like 1.25 here, especially with the 16 pixel base size. Very conventional type scale. If you were to look at this in its rounded font sizes, it's pretty much one of the most common type scales you will see. So this is all great. Looks cool. Works really well if you like setting type in the browser because you can just use CSS custom properties and mix and match your base font size and your scale factor and go wild. If you don't want to set type in the browser like a real designer, you can do it in Penpot. So don't judge all my tabs. So here in Penpot, I have got a few things going on. So this is our type ramp in Penpot, and what's powering this? So we have a token here. It's a number token. It's called math.font.scale, and if I edit that token, you'll see the value is 1.25. That's what we just saw in our type scale example. And you can see I have font size 0. This is our base font size. It's currently set to 14 because I'm a fucking sadist, but let's change it to 16. And you can see all the type values adjust when we change that base font size. So how is that happening? If I look at font size 1, which is the next up from our base font size, you can see we have font size 0 multiplied by math.font.scale. And this works because Penpot is designed by actual fucking humans, and they understand that you might potentially at some point want to use aliases and even maths in your token definitions. Couldn't be Figma. But yeah, this is essentially what we're doing, and we just do this for every step of the scale. So like I said, logarithmic scale, all you're doing is you are taking the previous value, multiplying it by your scale factor to get your next value, and you're good to go. So you can see here font size 2 is just font size 1 times by our scale. Font size 7 is font size 6 times by our scale. So really quickly, this lets you systematically play around with type in a way that makes sense for things like maintaining contrast and hierarchy as you start using larger or higher order semantic headings. Having things cascade. If you do decide to change your body font size, everything will cascade with it. And obviously this is just a type ramp example, right? But if you were to use these tokens in a UI, when you update either your base font size or your scale factor, the whole UI is going to adapt to that. You might need to fuck around with spacing and all that stuff. You'll see if I go a bit overboard with some tokens here, the spacing will mess up, but this is not a Penpot tutorial in that sense. It's not a UI tutorial. It's just showing off something that looks pretty cool. So if I want to change my font scale, let's say I'm a fucking idiot and I want to use 1.12. You can see now we have a much kind of more compressed scale. The jump from our base value to our highest order heading is kind of really, really small. And that's because we've changed, it's 1.25 down to 1.1. Mightn't seem like much, but it's a huge, huge difference when you consider we're using a multiplicative scale. So if I change this to something a bit higher and go for, say, like a 1.3, you'll see now we get a much kind of wider jump, much higher jump from the base font size all the way up to our highest order heading. And all we've done is change one token. If I edit that back to the 1.25 where it looked quite nice, and then I go change my base font size now, I change that to 18. You can see now, nice proportional scale, everything changes, everything updates. This is a much better way to set typography. I'd say if you're comfortable with HTML and CSS, setting type in the browser is still the best way to set typography. If you don't know HTML and CSS, fucking learn it. If you don't want to learn it, please play around with something that actually lets you use things like scales and multipliers and aliases in your tokens and not whatever bastardized weird fucking variable shit that Figma has going on. Play around with stuff like Penpot. It's open source, it's free, it's great, check it out. Yeah, that's logarithmic type scales in Penpot. If you want to learn how to actually apply this to real designs and UI, check out the Mindful Design course. Have to shield that. Give Penpot a try, really cool. Few features missing, but they're working in the open. They have an open roadmap that you can check out. I don't know what else to say. So until next time, go fuck yourself.